big man in a suit of armor. Take that off, what are you?
Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist.
Hello everyone, thanks so much for joining me here today as we get to talk about one of my favorite subjects, comic books. My name is Jose, I love comic books, I love talking about them, I love sharing them with you. Feel free to follow me on social media if you would like. Links are in the description below. I've also posted a link to the Marvel fan site that I have plot synopsis and character bios for the issue we're about to go through. Iron Man, number 222 from 1987. I love this era of Iron Man. This was the Iron Man, Denny O'Neill's, and then the return of Michelinie and Layton for their second run was the runs that I grew up with. I was much too young for their first run, but I just thought this was so cool. This armor was so cool. It was so different. I know that if you're looking at it through the eyes of now, it just, I know that it may seem dated or whatever, but man, oh man, as a kid seeing this on the stands, man, oh man, was this cool. Really enjoyed it. I'm an old soul, so I was born in the mid 70s and the mid 80s, so I would have been 12 years old when this came out. So nothing that a preteen nerd boy loves more than this. So here comes this wonderful splash page here. The party. And we have our cast. Michelinie, Bright, and Layton. Layton and Michelinie plotting it together. Michelinie, or Michelinie, as I've heard it also said, doing the script. Layton, the inks / finishes. Mark Randall, rest in peace, was the editor, and I believe we lost Mark Bright this year. Also, rest in peace, my man. He was someone I really enjoyed during this era. A lot of cool stuff he did. So Iron Man is destroying these condemned buildings. And so you can see him here destroying everything. And he comes back and everyone's like, that's awesome. This guy, however, doesn't think it's awesome. He's like, you can't just march in here and take jobs away from union members. And he's like, hey, there's plenty in Los Angeles. And he's like, doesn't matter. We have rules and laws. 675B clearly states that. And this guy says, I'll make sure that a union card gets sent to you at Stark Enterprises. My treat. And that he'll handle this guy here. So love the screen tones being used. Oh, so beautiful here. And so Tony takes off here, and look at this guy here. He's like, and he says, or he thinks here, I can sympathize with the foreman. As owner of Stark Enterprises, I've had my share of problems with the labor leaders and red tape, but at least tearing down that city block served its purpose. It lets me check the repairs I've made on my armor without having to face off against some costumed bad guy. So he's returning home here. This is a great panel here. That would be the last thing I need. Not when I'm getting ready to celebrate the completion of my new home. So I needed tonight's housewarming party bad after my recent troubles with AIM and the Ghost. If I don't take a break, I might break. By the way, I have a playlist. I always forget to mention this in the beginning. I've covered several issues of Iron Man with the Denny O'Neill era. Not all of them, just some, and then every single issue of the new Bob Layton, David Michelinie era. So feel free to check that out. So, and then of course we have Stark Enterprises here. And here's Tony saying, I better stop by the public relations office to see if Marcy Pearson has distributed those publicity releases yet. And Tony goes in and so goes, Miss Williams, what happened to this place? Usually there's more chaos here than at Dodger Stadium on free beer night. Now things are absolutely dead. And she says here, well, I have been called a killer in my time, sir, but never precisely in that context. And it's Mrs. Arbogast from their first, his original secretary. I've been looking for you for months, trying to get you to take your old job as office manager. I know your message has finally caught up with me in Tanzania. News travels so slowly in the bush, you know. What happened to Miss Williams? Oh, I threw her back into secretarial pool. And so here's Rhodey, and he's like, well, I'll be Mrs. Arbogast. Hey, it's great to have you back. This is just like the old. And she's like, you're dripping grease on the carpet, Mr. Rhodes, huh? And she's like, you may be a talented pilot, but there's such a thing as office decorum, and oily coveralls are not part of it. Excuse me a minute, Chief. I got to go back to the hangar. I forgot something. He goes, what? My gun. And Tony's like, don't worry, Mrs. A. Rhodey's just joking. The only time he's without his Beretta's in the shower. Then maybe he should switch to a water pistol. And he's like, one of these days. And so Tony says, the armor checked out A-OK, Rhodey. I just have to do a little fine tuning in the ad building lab, and I'll be set. And Rhodey says, don't spend too much time over a hot computer, Chief. Remember, the party's at 6. And Tony says, don't worry, I've been looking forward to this blowout for weeks. Wouldn't miss it for the worlds. And he's like, all right, I'll see you there. And so it says here the rest of the day went without incident, and there are some thunderstorms forming on the way around here. And Rhodey is about to go home here, and he walks in and he says, someone's here. I'm not alone. I can sense it. Air's too close, and there's something in it. Faint trace of perfume. And guess who, Flyboy? Indira Gandhi, she's dead. Oh, then it must be Marcy Pearson. Why? Whatever are you doing here? Well, for starters, this. And so the two of them kiss here. Your place is closer to Tony's than mine, so I let myself with the key. You think he'll mind if we go together? The boss ain't thrilled with employees dating each other, but there's no official policy against it. We'll be okay if we keep a low profile. I'm going to go shower down. She says, okay, I'll change. I think I'll look good in this. Better than I would, he says. So, seriously, babe, if you're going to dress in something that fine, hadn't you better clean up first? And so they're basically going to take a shower together. This is what I love about during this time. There's you can perceive it. You don't have to show it. I've always said there's nothing wrong with this. You don't need the hot shower scene. You don't need anything. You can just imply it and let it go. Movies and stuff should learn a little bit like this. And it's not that me being a prude or anything, but it serves no purpose. You totally get what's about to happen here. So, all right. So, 6 o'clock here, and of course we made mention that there was a thunderstorm here coming, so it is raining here. And here a paparazzi's trying to get in, but the security won't let him in, and he's taking all these things, and he's like, well, at least he didn't take the camera in my shoe. So, and here inside are the guests here. This guy, he's like, sorry, ma'am, I'm afraid I don't know any Bon Jovi. That's who was so super popular here. So, all right. So Mrs. Arbogast is calling and says, your guests are arriving and starting to wonder where their host is. And she says, I'll be there as soon as possible. And so Tony is going to change and go. And so he gets in his Iron Man and sees a fire and a wreck. So he's going to go down there and investigate and help. And so he pulls the guy out. And they're like, this is going to blow. And he goes, are you insured? Yeah. good, and throws it out there and it explodes. Hey, let's pollute the water. And this guy's like, hey, my wife, she's having a baby. And so these guys are talking, and this is the refrigerator Perry from the 85 Bears. So, and Iron Man, Tony's asking for Mrs. Arbogast and to hurry up. This is an emergency. So, um, he's like, pushy little guy. I wish he was here so I could sit on him. And so he's gonna go find Mrs. A, but this guy just ends up hanging up, and this guy's trying to impress this girl by saying that he's an agent and he can get her in on Dynasty, which was a show during the 80s. Love the screen tone again. So Iron Man is taking her to the hospital, and off they go. And so he's about to leave, but they're like, "Hey, we need help," and so um, off he goes. And so the guests are still um, wondering about Tony, and she's got, gosh, this was easier than I thought. I got past the valet into the house. Nobody even saw me. And this guy goes, "Pardon me, miss. May I see your invitation?" And she's like, "I don't have one right now. Mr. Stark invited me. Yeah, on the phone. Just ask him. Enjoy the party, miss. And when Mr. Stark arrives, we'll both ask him." So Iron Man does his thing. You can see here. And this house is about to fall, so off he goes. And so he is going to end up missing his poor party. And so you can't hold it. It's okay. But you can't hold it with trees that you just. And this was Larry Hagman from the show Dallas. And so he's like, "I'm going to go to the party." And then, of course, someone else needs some help. And it's the cat. And Iron Man's like, "I don't have time for this." And he comes back and grabs the cat. And off he goes. He's going to go into the secret entrance. And he says, "After this, I'm going to sleep." And down he goes. And then he's like, "Hey, where's everybody?" And of course, they said, "There were plenty of folks here when this started, Mr. Stark. Maybe you need to manage your social life too." And so he apologizes and he goes, "Mr. Stark, this lady doesn't have an invitation. She says she was with you." And she says, "Gee, I'm sorry." Very cute. On the contrary, I'm the one who should apologize. Um, I was simply unforgivable to keep you waiting. Bree Daniels, Bree, shall we? And so Tony says, "Now, Miss Daniels, what's the real story? I mean, I want to be an actress. I thought by crashing this party I could make contacts, but I've been so scared since I got caught that I haven't talked to anyone." Huh, dumb? Ah, um, and Tony says, "I'll introduce you to Steven Spielberg, who happens to be at his party." So, all right, so the party's over. Tony explains to Rhodey everything that happened today. And Tony says, "Well, there's a lot of people that are very glad that he was out there." And he says, "Well, maybe next time I'll take a cab." And so we got an epilogue here. We got this boat here. So there's an explosion. And this guy walks in and he says, "I wonder if they're all dead." Guess it doesn't matter. No, because the bottom line is Force has a job to do. And I always do what I'm told, don't I? Yeah. Like a trained puppy. Well, the more power blasts. Sorry. Well, one more power blast down through the hull and it'll all be over. And he says, "For now." So he's going to sink this ship. And he goes into the sub here and they go, "Good work, Force. The boss will be pleased. That ship's owner refused to cooperate. Now he's paid the price. You coming down for champagne?" He says later. And he says, "I don't feel much like celebrating. Besides, I have to work out my plan for my next target. After all, it's going to take every bit of power and courage I have to get to Iron Man." So, next, Counterforce. Iron Man 222. David Michelinie, or Michelinie, Mark Bright, and Bob Layton. Like and subscribe. I do thank you for listening. Goodbye.